All right. So I had a client and they were getting some code made for a project that they were developing here in Australia.
Yeah.
So they spent upwards of $100,000 with this person overseas and eventually got held for ransom for $40,000. All right. So this is an interesting story. So let's break it down
Pretty
a little
hectic.
bit. My client had a business that they were working with that needed to develop this software. So when they were developing the software, they worked out they don't have the expertise to develop the software. They went to search for an engineer, or let's just call it a software developer. They went overseas to the Philippines, not physically. They used a platform similar to freelancer.com.au,
Fiverr,
Upwork.
There's
whatever.
a lot out there.
We'll just call it the platform for now.
Sure.
Okay. They went on that platform. They found a developer. It seemed reputable, had reviews. All right, we're off to the races. Let's hire this dude. Seems trustworthy enough. And then they went forward.
Sure.
The client of mine, because they were eventually my client, they got me to audit the code. So after about a year of developing the code overseas, they thought, I need to get this double checked. What happens if this person gets hit by a bus or just like disappears or the internet falls down and they can't communicate with this dude? Let's have someone that knows the code locally.
Yeah. And just to ask, were they using this code in production at that point in time?
At this point, like after the whole year, yes, this was being used in a real business for a real purpose, for a real
client paying money.
And it was a very particular type of software that endangered lives if not used correctly.
Or if not coded correctly. Yeah,
correctly.
that's right. Yeah.
So they approached the developer and said that they wanted to get the code audited and saying, we're just getting someone to double check. Now, when I double check, what I try and do is I just run the project. I couldn't run the project. So I went to go look at the piece of code that I needed to work out why. It said this part of the code. I looked and the code was on some remote server far away that I couldn't access.
Like 80%, if not more, of the code.
The majority of the application was wrapped up and put overseas in this server.
Yeah.
The code was being delivered, but I couldn't see it.
It was in a private spot that's
let's just
almost
call it,
password
just for
protected.
simplicity reasons, it was just private.
Sure.
I could not see the code.
Yeah.
So I said, well, as an auditor, that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Went to my client and I said, hey, yo, like the code, it's not there, man.
Hey, yo.
yo. Code not there.
This ain't good.
Bad.
Yeah.
And the client flips out and goes, shit, my worst nightmare's happening. I don't have the code.
Yeah.
So we approached it in a nice way. I was even on the call and I mentioned that I went to go read the code and there was all this code on this remote.
Like you organized the meeting with the developer.
Organized the meeting with the developer.
And the owner at the same time.
Yeah. And they squirmed in their chair pretty much and worked out that, oh shit, this guy knows what he's talking about. Because before with the client, they could say anything. Yeah, the code's over here. This, that, it doesn't matter.
It's like little
it works.
swapping hats.
The magic on the broom. Like the code is meant to just
Harry
work. You
Potter
press
style.
play, code works.
Yeah,
Code didn't work, man. So I couldn't run it. And so eventually the guy says, no problem. I'll give it to you. But it's going to cost $40,000. So there was a lot of more detail in this, but I'm just simplifying it. The eventual end to the story was, give me $40,000. I'll give you all the code and documentation and everything. Now the deal was,
alarm bells.
Ding, 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 ding. Not good. This guy's pulling out clause insurance policy that he made up himself.
Yeah.
Now when someone does this, I've seen it time and time again. This is not the only time I've seen it. This is a nefarious, terrible way of doing business where a developer thinks that they might get, put out of money, replaced or put out of money, or the client might potentially rip them off. It's a plausible case that's happened to developers. I can see where they're coming from, but I do not agree with the process. So
Strongly disagree.
If someone says like your agreement was that you're handing over all the code, they handed it over, but in a nefarious way. So technically they did hand it over, but not in a way to run the code.
Yeah. There was no transparency there. It seems suddenly like dark clouds are around you and you're very confused as to where you are as the client because suddenly 40 grand comes out of nowhere. And you've been told that, you've been conditioned the whole time oh, this is what this is costing. And then bam, half of the price that you've already paid for the entire production live software is now a cost to you.
Exactly. $40,000. Give me my money and I'll give you the code. But the agreement was that they were meant to give the code. So they're already being ripped off.
Yeah.
So this client goes to the platform, like I said, similar to Freelancer and Upwork and all of those, and went to that one of the platforms and said, this guy did nefarious things. He didn't hold up to his agreement. And so the platform removed them.
Which is a major thing to the developer because they have a bunch of reviews for reputation.
Yeah.
That's enough to piss them off.
However, it didn't fix the case that my client didn't have his code.
No.
And therefore, what ended up happening in the whole story was they just ditched the project. They worked out that they didn't have the expertise. They should have got it checked earlier. And they just thought, we're going to wash our hands of this. They cancelled and just said, we can't do this project anymore.
Yeah, and that all came from just simply getting someone that they trusted in us to audit the code and then question the developer, not in a mean way. It was just, okay, where's the code? Nothing major. And then all of this was a domino effect from there, which shows how fragile the relationship was in the beginning as well.
Well, and it also just shows that there's very rogue developers out there that don't follow a standard.
No.
And then when it all goes wrong, then there was no ability to do anything other than going to the platform and asking them for, I don't know, retribution. But the thing is, all the money had already been given over. Yeah. It's not like the platform could go rip it back. It was done.
And I want to say quickly, in the building industry, let's say, there is a standard on what you need to follow to build. But in software, it's like cowboy territory. You're on uncharted waters. There's no standardization to what you need to do. And that's how you can have rogue developers like this.
That's right. And the code that I did read was completely spaghetti code.
Yeah.
It was unreadable.
It was like a mud hut.
Yeah, it was done by this guy's mind and his mind alone. Like, he didn't follow any type of standards you'd ever see.
Yeah.
It was just like weird names of the inside the code, undocumented.
Really bad. Spaghetti code is what we call it.
Let's just call it simplified spaghetti code. So look, there's a danger to anything you do, and especially when you don't have the expertise, it makes it a bit hard to verify something is legit.
Yeah, and I mean, the client, as you said, you'd have to remind me a bit, they ditched the project in the end, didn't they? Just completely.
But the main crux of this story is code being held for ransom, and that's just not okay. That's just not what any software developer should ever do.
No, and the final consequence or potential consequence is you spent $100,000 and it's in the bin. And that is sad for a small business in Australia, for example.